What's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and yesterday night I made a video about a guy by the name of Tim Pool. He has a podcast called Timcast IRL. I'm sure a lot of you all know him. Well, he's been the target of a lot of hate recently, and I know people feel how they want to feel about this guy. Some people like him, some people hate him, but I think that we should all be able to agree that regardless if you agree with Tim Pool or not, he shouldn't be the target of nonstop harassment and doxing and swatting and people breaking into his properties simply because they don't agree with the things he says online. Well, I made that video and I talked about how we as a country, all of us from different backgrounds and different ways of life and different ways of thinking and different ways of approaching life, that we all have to find some type of middle ground where we can coexist. And it's possible because we have coexisted as a country before. We have coexisted as a country for decades. Yet all of that work and progress that we made as a society, it feels as if it's all falling apart and it's ripping apart at the seams, and we have become so intolerant of our neighbors, of our family members, of our friends, of anyone who doesn't view things exactly the same way as us. And of course, I know my videos are only going to reach a certain amount of people. A few thousand people were going to watch that video. So I don't expect to change the world. But if I could at least sway a couple of people from being this type of person, and if I could at least encourage certain people or some people, a small minority of people, to be more accepting of opinions, then fine. My job here is done. But I gotta admit, it's discouraging when you put out that video trying to preach about, hey, let's all come together. We need to come together as a country. And then right after uploading that video, you get on Twitter and you see that Tim Pool has been swatted yet again. But that's the reality of what happened last night. As literally as soon as I got done recording that video and I was uploading it to YouTube, Tim Pool was swatted yet again. Now, to get the full backstory of what actually happened yesterday, shots were fired at one of his properties and everything. You could go watch the other video on him, but now today, things have gotten even worse. Some kind of death threat was sent to one of Tim Pool's family members today. He later discovered that the death threat was actually towards him. And also a random person, let's go ahead and take a look at this tweet. A random person just showed up to one of my properties claiming to be a fan. Good way to get shot. Hell of a week, I'd say. The threat from earlier seems to be some weird thing, some weird fake thing about how I have to leave town, stop calling people groomers, and pay them. Now, Tim Pool, he's been getting this type of treatment for a while. A lot of people don't like this guy. And he's been the target of, like I said, of swatting and various things like that. And it's gotten pretty bad for him over this year and other people as well. But I've noticed that there seems to be an uptick of this stuff happening to him and other people right now. I don't know if I would call it a dramatic increase, but there's an undeniable increase in these people being targeted by this harassment right now. And why is that? Now, we could have the conversation that maybe it's just the natural progression of things. Because here in 2022, things don't really stay stagnant in our society anymore. Things either decline or they incline, they increase, right? So maybe one could argue that, hey, of course, this targeting of Tim Pool and others would get worse. It's the natural progression. Someone has to one up the other. And if this stuff goes unchecked, of course, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So one could definitely argue that this is just due to the natural progression of things. But to me, it seems as if this has all really started recently. Don't get me wrong, people have been doing this for a while now, but this uptick, this increase has recently started once some of these people started calling out groomers. And I mean, it's to the point where you can't even say that word on these social media platforms. I'm supposed to call it the G word. But since they've been calling out this type of stuff and the targeting of kids, there's been this increase in the targeting of them. So, of course, Tim Pool, he has political figures on his show that some people may not like. He has social figures, if you will, on his show that some people find controversial and may not like. So he's always been the target of hate and harassment because of that. But things have gotten crazier and more outrageous now ever since him and a few others have really been talking about the SA of children. It's so hard to really have this conversation on this platform. But I've been looking into the situation for a while now, and I've also been looking into the response to a lot of the stuff that Tim Pool and other people say, and I've noticed the trend, and I've noticed people becoming more radicalized. And it's sad that we live in a place where you become the target of harassment when you're calling out people who do horrible things to kids. It's so crazy to me that when you call out predators, when you call out people who are over-sexualizing children, when you call out people who are doing horrible things to kids, you become a target now in this country. You would think that's doing something good. You would think that you would be painted in a positive light for speaking out against some of the stuff that these people are speaking out against. Yet instead of being viewed as a hero, and hell, instead of being viewed as at least a normal person, you are demonized. The mainstream media itself will demonize you for advocating for kids, for advocating that these sick, twisted adults aren't able to do horrible things to kids and with kids. And this is something I was talking about while covering a missing little girl's case the other day. We're starting to see an increase in not only people like Tim Pool being targeted and harassed for calling out child predators and stuff like that, but we're also seeing an increase in horrible crimes committed against women and kids as well. Every day here on this channel, there's always another missing kid. Another kid who was harmed by a stranger or a loved one or even a parent. And I feel like that people are being emboldened to do horrible things to kids because they're no longer being held accountable by our society. But not just that, when you call the stuff out and when you point it out, you become a target of these radical activists who are advocating for the right to do what they want sexually with your kids. These activists are fighting so parents lose control of their own kids. They want the state to have the last say so in what happens with your kid. They want teachers, radicalized teachers, to have the last say so with what happens to your kids. And then if you call it out, they have an angry mob full of weirdos who will send you threats and who will show up at your house and break into your home because you called out child predators. When I was growing up, do y'all remember we had that Chris Hansen show? Hi, I'm Chris Hansen. He would invite predators in. He would trick them, act like he's a little kid. Then he would feed them cookies before they get tackled outside of the house and go to jail. But now, as an adult in 2022, Chris Hansen would be doxxed and harassed for doing the type of work that he did back then. And that's sad. That's incredibly sad. And it's sad that Tim Pool and others, they're dealing with this harassment not because they've done something egregious and horribly wrong, but because they advocated for kids not being sexualized. So they advocated for kids to have a normal childhood like you're supposed to. But that's bad nowadays. And that's a scary world to live in. Who's to say someone doesn't show up at my house angry because I made this video? I'm really not too optimistic about the future of this country if things don't change dramatically quick. But let me know your thoughts about all of this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I will talk to you all in the next video.